There comes a moment in every life when the noise around us grows too loud, when the world pulls at our sleeves and demands pieces of us we no longer have to give. And in that quiet ache, we discover a truth as old as time itself. The moment you turn inward, the moment you choose yourself, the world begins to shift. When you focus on healing your wounds, strengthening your spirit, and honoring your journey, life rearranges its steps to match your courage. What once felt scattered gathers. What once felt distant draws near. And suddenly, almost gracefully, everything begins to fall into place. Not because the world changed, but because you did. When we hear the words focus on yourself, many of us flinch as if we have been accused of something unkind. We have been taught to pour ourselves out until the cup runs dry, to give even when our hands are trembling from the weight. But child, hear me when I say this. Choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of survival. It is a declaration that your life, your heart, and your dreams deserve the same devotion you give to others. When you honor your own needs, you are not turning your back on the world. You are preparing yourself to meet it with strength rather than exhaustion. There is a quiet dignity in tending to your own soul. When you allow yourself to rest, to breathe, to heal, you create space for clarity to rise. And clarity is a powerful companion. It reveals to you what is worth your time and what is merely draining your spirit. It shows you the difference between love and attachment, between loyalty and sacrifice, between growing with someone and shrinking for them. The moment you begin to respect your own boundaries, the world begins to respect them too. Some people may not understand your decision to step back, to pour into yourself, to guard your peace. That is all right. Everyone cannot walk every mile with you. There are seasons meant for pruning, quiet moments where you choose solitude, not because you are broken, but because you are building. And in that solitude, you discover your own strength again. You find that your voice is still powerful, your dreams are still alive, and your spirit has not forgotten how to rise. When you shift your focus inward, life responds in gentle but profound ways. Opportunities appear where there was once only confusion. Confidence grows where doubt once lived. Relationships become softer, kinder, more truthful. You stop begging for acceptance because you begin to accept yourself. You stop chasing people who were never meant to stay because you finally understand the value of your own presence. The chaos that once surrounded you begins to fade, not because the world has changed, but because you no longer allow what does not honor your peace to sit at your table. Self-respect is a powerful force. It teaches you to walk away from rooms where you are not valued and toward places where you can flourish. It teaches you to trust the whisper inside you that says you are deserving, you are capable, you are enough. It teaches you to no longer apologize for protecting your heart. When you place yourself at the center of your own life, everything that is meant for you begins to align. What is true stays, what is false falls away, and what is destined finds its way to your doorstep without you having to chase it. So focus on yourself, not in arrogance, but in reverence, not to shut the world out, but to strengthen the part of you that must stand tall in it. When you treat yourself with respect, life begins to treat you the same. And piece by piece, step by step, everything falls into place. When you nurture your own garden, your life blooms in colors you never expected. Too often we stand at the fences of other people's lives, admiring their flowers, worrying about their storms, tending to their soil while our own garden dries and cracks beneath our feet. We forget that beauty begins at home, within the quiet corners of our own spirit. The moment you turn your hands back to your own soil, your growth, your healing, your purpose, life begins to respond in ways that feel almost miraculous. What once looked empty begins to show signs of life. What once felt hopeless starts to hum with possibility. It is not magic, it is simply the natural reward of finally giving yourself the attention you have long deserved. There is something sacred about taking time to understand who you are beneath the noise and expectations. When you water your own dreams, even with small trembling drops of effort, they begin to rise. When you pull out the weeds of doubt, insecurity, and comparison, suddenly there is room for new strength to take root. And in that process, you learn that growth is not loud. It does not demand applause. It happens in quiet mornings when you choose discipline over distraction, in late nights when you refuse to settle for less than your worth, and in moments of honesty when you decide you will no longer live a life that dims your own light. People may question your choices when you begin nurturing your own garden. They may ask why you no longer chase their approval or carry their burdens. They may notice that your yes is now thoughtful and your no is firm. But you are not distancing yourself from others. You are returning to yourself. You are learning that you cannot bloom while giving away all your sunlight. You cannot rise while shrinking for someone else's comfort. You cannot grow in a place where you are not watered. By tending to your own life, you give others permission to tend to theirs, because healed people inspire healing and whole people encourage wholeness. As you continue to care for your own heart, something beautiful happens. The world around you begins to shift. You start attracting people who respect your boundaries, opportunities that reflect your talents, and experiences that honor your growth. You no longer cling to what was never meant for you because you finally trust that what is meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself. Life begins to bloom in ways you couldn't have imagined, not because everything suddenly became easy, but because you became intentional. Nurturing your own garden teaches you patience. Growth doesn't happen all at once. Some days will feel slow, some seasons will feel barren, but even then, there is movement beneath the surface. Even then, something inside you is preparing to rise. When the time is right, you will see the colors. Vibrant, unexpected, and undeniably yours. And when they bloom, you will know that every moment you chose yourself was worth it. Every boundary, every step forward, every tear wiped quietly in the dark was part of the process. Because when you tend to your own life with care, courage, and consistency, you don't just bloom, you flourish. And the world can't help but take notice. Peace begins the moment you stop chasing people and start choosing yourself. There comes a time when you grow tired of running after those who were never meant to join you on your journey. You get weary from stretching your heart to reach places where it is not welcomed, from knocking on doors that stay closed no matter how gently you knock. And in that exhaustion, there is a quiet truth waiting for you. You are not meant to beg for belonging. You are not meant to chase anyone to earn love, respect, or attention. The moment you understand this, a calmness settles over your spirit like morning light breaking over a restless sea. You realize that peace does not come from being accepted by others. It comes from accepting yourself. When you stop chasing people, you reclaim your power. No longer do you twist yourself into shapes that make you unrecognizable. No longer do you tolerate behavior that wounds your spirit. You begin to understand that your value was never dependent on someone else's ability to see it. And with that understanding, a heaviness lifts. The world feels lighter because you are no longer carrying the weight of proving yourself. You stand more firmly in your truth, and in that truth, you find a strength you didn't know you had. A strength that whispers, you are enough as you are, and those who are meant for you will come without you needing to run after them. Choosing yourself is not an act of pride, it is an act of peace. It is deciding that your heart deserves comfort, not chaos. It is choosing relationships where you can breathe instead of ones where you are constantly suffocating. It is allowing yourself to walk away from conversations that bruise your spirit and environments that drain your soul. And when you do, you discover that solitude is not loneliness, it is sanctuary. It is the place where you hear your own voice again, where you reconnect with your dreams, where you heal from the wounds you once pretended didn't hurt. Solitude becomes a friend, not an enemy. As you continue choosing yourself, you'll notice something remarkable. The right people begin to appear. People who value your presence instead of taking it for granted. People who respond to your honesty with honesty of their own. People who do not require you to abandon who you are just to stay in their lives. And because you have learned peace, you recognize them easily. Your spirit knows the difference now between someone who brings calm and someone who brings chaos. You no longer mistake attention for affection or convenience for care. You become wiser in your connections, stronger in your boundaries, and softer toward yourself. When you finally choose yourself, life finds its balance. You stop running toward those who walk away. You stop clinging to things that drain you. You stop apologizing for protecting your heart, and slowly, beautifully, everything begins to align. Your steps feel steadier, your decisions feel clearer, and your days carry more ease. Because peace is no longer something you chase in others. It is something you have built within yourself. And once peace lives in you, nothing and no one can take it away. Your energy grows when you stop scattering it and start centering it. There comes a point when you must look at your life and admit that you have been pulled in too many directions for far too long. You've given your time to obligations that drained you, your emotions to people who only took, and your energy to situations that were never yours to fix. You stretched yourself thin, trying to be everything for everyone, and somewhere in that stretch, you lost sight of yourself. But the truth is simple and unwavering. You cannot thrive while your spirit is scattered across places that do not nourish you. Growth requires focus, and focus requires the courage to gather all the pieces of you and bring them home. When you begin to center yourself, something powerful shifts. You start noticing where your energy leaks. Those conversations that leave you tired instead of understood. Those habits that keep you stuck instead of moving forward. Those environments that shrink you instead of allowing you to breathe. At first, the noticing feels uncomfortable because it demands honesty. But it is within that honesty that your strength begins to rise. When you admit what drains you, you awaken to what restores you. And when you follow that restoration, you begin to reclaim the parts of yourself you thought you had lost forever. Centering your energy doesn't mean shutting the world out. It means being intentional about what you allow in. It means choosing where your time goes, who your emotions touch, and what your mind carries. You start asking yourself simple but transformative questions. Does this bring me peace? Does this move me forward? Does this honor who I am becoming? These questions become a compass, guiding you back to yourself again and again. And as you follow that compass, your spirit grows stronger, steadier, more rooted. You no longer scatter your energy, trying to prove your worth because you have finally begun to feel it within you. As your energy gathers, clarity comes. You begin to see your path with new eyes. You realize that every time you centered yourself, every time you chose rest, every time you said no, every time you walked away from what wasn't meant for you, you were building a foundation for your future. What once felt chaotic now feels manageable. What once overwhelmed you now stands no chance against your renewed strength. And with that strength comes a quiet confidence that does not need loud declarations. It lives in the way you carry yourself, the decisions you make, the peace that follows you like a shadow. Centering your energy also helps you recognize the right opportunities. When you are scattered, everything feels urgent, everything feels necessary, and everything feels like it could be the thing that saves you. But when you are centered, you understand that not every door deserves your knock. You begin to see that some opportunities are distractions in disguise, designed to pull you away from the path that is truly yours. And because you are aligned with yourself, you no longer chase everything that glitters. You choose what aligns with your purpose. The more you center your energy, the more you grow in ways that others can't always see, but can certainly feel. Your presence becomes calmer, your words more intentional, your boundaries firmer. You stop reacting to every storm because your peace is no longer tied to the weather outside. You found shelter within. And from that shelter, you rise with clarity, strength, and purpose. And as you rise, everything around you begins to rise with you. When your energy is whole, so is your direction. When your energy is focused, so is your life. And piece by piece, moment by moment, your world starts to align, not because it changed, but because you finally gathered yourself and stood in your own power. The world reshapes itself when you rise into the fullness of who you are. There is a quiet power that lives inside every person, a strength that waits patiently for the moment you finally decide to stop dimming yourself. Many of us move through life apologizing for our light, shrinking so others can feel tall, hiding our gifts so no one feels threatened. But the moment you stop suppressing who you were born to be, everything around you begins to change. It is not the world that shifts first, it is you. And when you shift, the world has no choice but to adjust to the magnitude of your truth. There is a certain courage required to rise into yourself. It means facing the parts of you that you have been taught to tuck away. It means acknowledging the dreams you silenced out of fear. It means admitting that you have outgrown places where you once felt comfortable. Rising into your fullness is not loud or boastful. It is a quiet decision, often made in the dark, when you finally whisper to yourself, I deserve to be whole. And when you make that decision, something inside you straightens. You begin to carry yourself with a different kind of strength, one rooted not in pride, but in self-recognition. As you rise, you begin to see life with new clarity. You notice the people who celebrated you only when you were small, the ones who preferred you uncertain and dependent. You also notice the ones who always believed in you, but you were too insecure to believe them. You start understanding that not everyone is meant to rise with you, and that is not a painful truth. It is a necessary one. Rising demands space. It demands honesty. It demands letting go of the versions of yourself that settled for far too little. And though it may feel uncomfortable at first, that discomfort is simply the feeling of becoming. When you step into who you truly are, opportunities begin to appear that once seemed impossible. It is not luck, it is alignment. Life responds to you when you respond to your purpose. Doors open because you finally have the courage to knock. People show up because you are vibrating at a level that calls them in. You attract situations that reflect your growth, not your wounds. And the challenges that once broke you now strengthen you because you approach them with a deeper sense of self. The world does not reshape itself because you demanded it to. It reshapes itself because confidence, clarity, and authenticity alter the way you walk through it. When you rise, you no longer fear what others might think. You no longer allow doubt to be the loudest voice in your life. You no longer shrink to fit into spaces that cannot hold your spirit. Instead, you create your own space, one built from truth, courage, and self-respect. And in that space, your life begins to unfold differently. Your relationships become more honest. Your decisions become more purposeful. Your days feel more aligned. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is real. You are finally living as the person you were always meant to be. When you rise into the fullness of who you are, the world bends gently around your growth. It moves in harmony with your strength, responds to your confidence, and reflects back the beauty of a life lived without apology. And in that harmony, you discover that nothing around you needed to change, only you did. Once you became whole, everything else finally found its place. What you water within will bear fruit without. There is a quiet law that governs life, one that often goes unnoticed until you begin to pay attention to the garden inside you. The thoughts you nurture, the beliefs you hold, the love you give yourself. They are seeds. Some are fragile, some are stubborn, but all have the potential to grow. If you fill your mind with self-doubt, resentment, or fear, that is what will bloom in your world. But if you fill it with hope, discipline, and compassion, then the fruits of your inner work will inevitably show in the way you live, the way you love, and the way you move through the world. It is a simple principle, yet its power is immense. When you choose to invest in yourself, to water your own dreams, and to cultivate your own strength, life responds. What once felt impossible begins to feel inevitable. Your relationships reflect the respect and care you show yourself. Opportunities appear that mirror your dedication. Your health, your mindset, and your confidence all begin to flourish because you have chosen to nurture the root of your being. What you carry inside is always the first reflection of what you experience outside. If the soil of your heart is rich, the harvest of your life will be abundant. It is important to remember that watering yourself requires patience. Growth does not happen overnight. You may plant seeds of kindness toward yourself and see only bare earth for weeks, months, or even years. You may feel discouraged when old habits resurface or when the world does not immediately recognize your effort. But the act of nurturing yourself is never wasted. Every morning you choose to speak gently to your own heart. Every evening you allow yourself rest and forgiveness. Every day you commit to your growth. These are all forms of watering. And over time, what you water will break through the soil and show itself in ways that are undeniable. Self-care, self-respect, and intentional growth are the water and sunlight of the soul. When you feed your curiosity, your creativity, and your resilience, you create an internal ecosystem that supports everything else in your life. You begin to attract people who honor your boundaries, opportunities that match your purpose, and experiences that elevate rather than diminish you. What you cultivate within becomes a magnet for abundance without, because the world naturally responds to the energy you emit. The more you nourish your inner life, the more harmony you notice in the outer world. And sometimes the fruits appear in subtle ways. A newfound patience, a calmer heart, a moment of clarity where you once felt confusion. Sometimes the harvest is monumental, a career opportunity, a transformative relationship, a breakthrough you never expected, but always, the fruits are a reflection of what you have faithfully tended inside yourself. You cannot force the growth, you cannot demand it from others, and you cannot take shortcuts. The water you give yourself is the water that will bear the sweetest fruit, because it is rooted in authenticity, intention, and care. So, tend to yourself. Feed your mind with hope, your heart with love, and your spirit with courage. Stand guard over your energy and plant seeds that matter to you. For every moment you invest in yourself, the world around you will reflect that investment. What you nurture within will inevitably show itself without, and the life that grows from that care will be richer, fuller, and more extraordinary than anything you could have borrowed from another. The harvest begins where you begin. Silencing the noise around you allows you to hear the wisdom within you. There is a constant hum in the world, a buzz of opinions, expectations, and distractions that tugs at every corner of your mind. From the moment you wake until the moment you rest, the world seems determined to speak over the quiet voice inside you. And yet, that quiet voice is your most faithful guide, the one that knows your true path, the one that has been whispering your purpose even when you ignored it. The challenge is not that wisdom is absent. The challenge is that it is buried beneath a cacophony of voices that are not yours. When you choose to silence the noise, you begin to recognize the difference between what belongs to you and what belongs to others. It is not always easy, for the world has a way of convincing us that we need every opinion, every approval, every comparison to feel valid. But when you resist that pull and step into stillness, a remarkable clarity emerges. You begin to hear the voice that is steady, unwavering, and deeply attuned to who you are. It may speak in subtle nudges, quiet urgings, or moments of intuition, but once you attune to it, You realize that all the answers you have been seeking have always been within reach. Silencing the noise requires intentionality. It may mean stepping away from people who constantly question your choices, from media that stirs anxiety, or from environments that leave your mind scattered. It may mean carving out moments of solitude where you can breathe, reflect, and listen. And though it can feel uncomfortable at first, like standing in an empty room that echoes with your own uncertainty, it is precisely in that space that wisdom begins to flourish. Silence is not emptiness. It is the fertile ground where your own truth takes root. As you listen inward, you begin to understand patterns and possibilities that were previously invisible. You recognize what aligns with your values and what does not. You realize where your energy is being spent needlessly and where it can be invested wisely. Decisions that once seemed confusing now feel clear. Paths that once seemed blocked now appear open. The wisdom within you does not shout, but it moves with a certainty that builds confidence, courage, and resilience. It guides you toward choices that honor your growth, your peace, and your potential. The beauty of listening to yourself is that it teaches independence and trust. You no longer rely solely on external validation to know that you are on the right path. You learn to trust the quiet instincts that have been guiding you all along. You begin to notice that when you act from that place of inner clarity, your life starts to respond differently. Opportunities, relationships, and experiences fall into place more naturally because they resonate with the authentic energy you are now projecting. When your internal compass is aligned, the external world follows suit. Silencing the noise also allows you to live more fully in the present. You stop reliving the past or worrying excessively about the future because your attention is centered in your own awareness. You hear the subtle lessons in every experience, the gentle nudges toward growth, and the small joys that often go unnoticed. And with each moment of attentiveness, your inner wisdom grows stronger, more confident, and more unshakable. It becomes a force that not only guides you, but also protects you, a quiet power that ensures you are never truly lost, even when the world feels chaotic. When you finally embrace the art of listening to yourself, life becomes less about reacting to noise and more about responding with intention. The distractions, the doubts, and the chaos may still exist, but they no longer dominate your mind or dictate your actions. You have found a sanctuary within yourself, a place where clarity, courage, and truth reside. And in that sanctuary, you discover the greatest freedom, the ability to move through life guided not by the clamor of the world, but by the steady, unerring wisdom that has always been inside you. Growth requires courage, the courage to step away, to stand alone, to stand tall. True growth is never comfortable. It demands that we face the parts of ourselves we have long ignored, the fears we have hidden beneath smiles, and the habits that no longer serve us. It asks us to walk away from situations, relationships, and patterns that feel familiar but are quietly suffocating us. This stepping away is not a sign of weakness. It is the first act of bravery in reclaiming your life. To leave behind what no longer nourishes you is to say, with quiet strength, I choose myself. Standing alone can feel frightening at first, for human beings are wired for connection, for safety in numbers, for reassurance in others' presence. But solitude is often the forge in which courage is tempered. When you stand alone, you learn to rely on your own voice, to trust your instincts, and to honor your convictions without the need for approval. It is in these moments, when the crowd is absent and the noise has faded, that your character is revealed. You discover a reservoir of resilience you did not know existed, a strength that can withstand criticism, doubt, and even loneliness. Standing alone teaches you that your worth is inherent, not dependent on anyone's presence. Standing tall is the culmination of this courage. It is the outward expression of inward conviction. To stand tall is to carry yourself with dignity, even when others doubt you. It is to take up space unapologetically, to speak your truth even when your voice shakes, to pursue your path even when it diverges from the expectations of the world. Growth asks us to claim our posture, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally. Standing tall is not arrogance. It is the embodiment of self-respect, the recognition that you deserve to be seen, heard, and honored. Growth also means embracing discomfort as a teacher rather than an enemy. Every step away, every moment of solitude, every act of courage comes with unease. You may feel doubt, fear, or hesitation. You may question whether the path you have chosen is worth the cost. But these feelings are signs that transformation is happening. The old self resists letting go, and the new self is still learning to rise. To persist through discomfort is to affirm your commitment to growth, to tell yourself that your potential is greater than your fear. As you cultivate courage, you begin to notice a shift in your life. Decisions become clearer because they are guided by intention rather than habit. Relationships align with respect and authenticity because you no longer compromise your values. Opportunities appear that mirror your strength and integrity because you are no longer afraid to be fully yourself. Growth becomes visible in the steadiness of your steps, the confidence of your choices, and the peace in your presence. Ultimately, the courage to step away, to stand alone, and to stand tall transforms not only your life, but the world around you. People begin to see the power of authenticity and the magnetism of self-respect. Spaces that once felt confining begin to expand. Paths that once seemed blocked open up. And you come to understand that growth is not a fleeting achievement, it is a lifelong commitment to yourself. Every act of courage plants a seed for a stronger, freer, and more purposeful life. And with each seed, everything else begins to align. When you honor your worth, life honors you back in miraculous ways. It begins with a quiet recognition that you are deserving of respect, love, and abundance. Not because you have earned it by pleasing others, not because you have achieved some distant standard, but simply because you exist. Honoring your worth is a choice, a deliberate act of claiming your place in the world without apology. It is understanding that you are not less than anyone else, and therefore you will no longer accept less than you deserve. When you take this stance, the universe begins to respond, not with instant perfection, but with opportunities, connections, and experiences that reflect your self-respect. To honor your worth requires courage and honesty. It means setting boundaries that protect your energy and your peace, even when others question your decisions. It means saying no to relationships that diminish you, to situations that drain you, and to commitments that do not align with your values. It means refusing to shrink yourself to fit someone else's comfort or expectations. These acts are not selfish, they are essential. When you honor yourself in these ways, you are sending a message to the world. Your presence is valuable, and your time is precious. Life notices this, often in ways so subtle and profound that you can only recognize them in hindsight. Honoring your worth also transforms the way you see challenges and setbacks. When you know your value, obstacles no longer define your path, they become lessons and stepping stones. Instead of allowing failure to shake your confidence, you view it as a mirror showing what is truly important and what is worth adjusting. You stop blaming yourself for circumstances beyond your control and begin to focus on the choices that elevate you. In doing so, you move with intention and clarity, and the life that once felt unpredictable starts to align with your inner strength and vision. Relationships begin to shift when you honor your worth. People who previously demanded more than you could give, or who took advantage of your kindness, will fall away, making room for those who meet you with respect and reciprocity. You no longer settle for love, friendship, or partnership that undervalues you. Instead, you attract connections that celebrate your presence, honor your boundaries, and encourage your growth. Life has a way of reflecting the energy you project, and when you project self-worth, the world responds in kind. Honoring your worth extends to your dreams and ambitions as well. You no longer downplay your talents or postpone your goals out of fear or doubt. You allow yourself to step into spaces that once seemed intimidating, to speak your truth boldly, and to pursue what sets your soul on fire. Each time you honor yourself in this way, the universe conspires to meet you with resources, guidance, and opportunities that feel almost miraculous. The life you receive is not a gift handed to you. It is a reflection of the respect and value you have cultivated within. Ultimately, honoring your worth is a practice of faith in yourself and in the life you are meant to live. It teaches patience, resilience, and discernment. It transforms everyday moments into acts of self-celebration and challenges into invitations to rise. And as you continue to honor your worth, you discover that life responds generously, gently, and miraculously. Doors open where walls once stood, clarity replaces confusion, and peace settles where once there was doubt. When you honor yourself fully, everything else begins to honor you, and the path you walk becomes aligned with the life you were always meant to live. Focusing on yourself aligns you with the rhythm of your destiny. Life has a way of pulling us in so many directions that it becomes easy to forget our own path. We chase dreams that are not ours, follow expectations that were never meant for us, and get caught in routines that numb our spirit. But when you take the time to turn inward, to center yourself, and to focus on what truly matters to you, something remarkable happens. You begin to move in harmony with the life that was always meant for you. Your steps, your choices, and your intentions start to sync with the rhythm of your own unique destiny. When you focus on yourself, clarity emerges. You begin to see the patterns that have guided your life so far, the lessons embedded in your experiences, and the signs pointing you toward your purpose. It is not about controlling every outcome or forcing life to follow a plan. It is about listening deeply to your own heart and allowing your actions to reflect that guidance. Every decision becomes more intentional, every effort more aligned, and every moment more infused with meaning. The chaos that once dominated your days begins to settle, replaced by a quiet confidence that you are exactly where you need to be. Focusing on yourself also teaches patience. Destiny cannot be rushed, and the universe has a rhythm that cannot be hurried. There will be seasons of waiting, periods of uncertainty, and moments when progress seems invisible. But when you remain connected to yourself, when you trust your inner guidance, you navigate these seasons with grace rather than frustration. You understand that every delay, every detour, and every challenge is preparing you for the path ahead. By staying focused on your growth, your purpose, and your priorities, you allow life to unfold in its own perfect timing.